New World's December update is hitting the PTR today, and it's got some pretty big changes in it. Now, when you first look at the PTR notes, you might think, oh, this actually looks like a decent update. But we all know Amazon, with one hand they giveth, and the other they taketh away. And the big news is this. In early 2022, your armor gear score will actually scale to your high watermark gear score level. Now, that's a pretty big change. And what it means is if, let's say, you have a void bent 600 gear score item, but your high watermark gear score is only 500, that 600 piece is now going to be at your high watermark gear score of 500 and be scaled down. And I'm just going to say, I think that's a pretty garbage change, and it drastically hurts and nerfs crafting. But that's not in this patch necessarily, so we'll talk more about this in a moment. The main bulk of the content this month is going to be seasonal themed, basically Christmas themed, and it actually all seems fun. It seems like there's fun cosmetics to be had, it seems like there's fun new quests and that kind of stuff. And whilst most of it is temporary, it is going to leave like a permanent scar on the world and stuff like that. So that all seems good, and I'm actually happy and looking forward to getting in and playing some of those quests. But the meat of this patch really seems to be trying to address the progression endgame that a lot of people have chastised. And for me, it sort of completely fails at the moment. It has a lot of potential, but I don't think we're there yet. It strongly looks like to me that they want to time gate progression, and they're just going to do that. And it all starts with your high watermark gear score now being changed to expertise. So when I say high watermark gear score or expertise, just know they are essentially the same thing. And they're actually going to display this in game, which is pretty nice. And they're also adding a currency called gypsum. Now, this currency you're going to get from doing all different kinds of content. So you'll get a type of it if you do Outpost Rush, you'll get a different type of it if you do expeditions, and so on and so forth. Now, even though there's different types of this gypsum, it sounds like the thing that you're going to be able to craft, no matter how many different types you have, that you will only be able to craft once per day, unless my reading comprehension is incorrect there. And the thing that you can create is something called a cast. Now, what this is basically you're going to pick like a weapon type, an armor slot, or even maybe a trinket slot, and you're going to say, okay, I want to get an improvement in this slot. And then when you open your cast, you get a guaranteed increase in your expertise rating, and apparently it's quite significant. That in itself sounds fine, but when you combine that with the fact that they're essentially going to nerf most of the other types of content, apart from maybe expeditions, they're going to decrease the loot quality that you get from chests by a little bit, and they're going to drastically decrease the loot quality you get from open world enemies quite a lot. And really what this essentially does is time gate your progression. Because you can only create these cast things once a day, you're not going to be able to increase your watermark gear score as easily by just going out in the world and farming it. Now, whilst that sounds okay, again, we're having this situation where it's a little bit too late in the day. A lot of people have already increased their watermark score by using the system that is in place now. So all you're really doing is time gating people who are coming after the people who are already there. And I hate it when Amazon do this, and they have a significant pattern of doing this. It's not that the system itself is intrinsically bad, it actually sounds fine. It's just that, again, the timing is awful. And then you combine this with the fact that in early 2022, I'm not sure why it's coming in early 2022 instead of just now. Maybe it's to give time for people to, recover from it, up their watermark gear score, and then have less people complaining. Maybe that's the reason. Then they're going to do that thing where your gear is going to scale to your expertise rating. Now, it only sounds like that your gear is going to get scaled down. It does not sound like your gear is going to get scaled up. So let's say you have the 520 PvP armor like I do, and maybe my boots gear score is about 600. It's not like my gear score now goes from 520 to 600, but if it was the other way around, that I had a gear score item that was 600, but I was actually 520, then I am getting nerfed to 520. And I just don't really like the sound of that change at all, partly and mainly because it seems to nerf crafting. Either people who have just leveled up the crafting for themselves, because let's say you just like, alright, I'm going to be an armorer, and I'm just going to make loads of armor for myself, but I'm not going to actually bother farming the high watermark gear score system. Oh, yikes, you're actually knackered now. All the gear that you've made that's level 600 for yourself, well, you're back down to 500, mate. It was all wasted time, basically. And they literally address this. They say they don't want you to be able to just buy quality gear on the trading post, basically, essentially limiting your progression. But I think that's sort of omitting the fact that there can actually be different types of progression. One of them just being like getting lots of gold so you can buy stuff, and another just being crafting. But they are actually adding something to crafting, which I think is possibly to make up for this, but I'm not sure it's going to, and that is the introduction of trade skill aptitude. Now, this is basically a system that's going to let you essentially level up past level 200, and you will essentially get a circle bar that's going to have 3 points on it, and each time you hit one of these points, then you're going to get rewarded with some stuff. And that's going to be stuff like craft mods, ingredients, and those kind of things, as well as schematics and recipes, which sounds interesting. And each time you get the circle all the way around with your XP, well then your rewards start increasing in quality. And they're introducing something I really like the sound of, which is being able to make a level 600 pattern with a specific recipe that has a specific appearance, which I really like the sound of, so that you actually can possibly, you know, style out your character without paying real money. Now that doesn't sound like a proper transmog system, so we'll have to wait and see how that's implemented in game, but I like the idea of getting to a situation where we have a proper transmog system and people can customize their look without just using the store, but primarily doing it in game as well. But just remember that level 600 schematic you have, well, if you sell it to somebody who's only expertise level 500, they're only going to get a level 500 version of that. On the plus side, it does mean if you are at level 500, the more that you get your expertise rating up, the more your gear gets better, which is like sort of like an heirloom, I guess. Now, something that was just in the dev blog rather than the patch notes is expeditions. Now, you might think, oh, they're finally going to make them easy to get into. Wrong, very wrong. What they're actually doing is making them better so that when you go in them, you get more rewards. Which I think is just what everybody wanted, right? You didn't want to just go in for like fun, casual content, you know, end game. No, you wanted to get rewarded more so that the value of your orbs was going up. I mean, I just feel like that completely misses the point of what most players wanted. They're also adding elite areas in Eden Grove and Ebonscale by just changing some areas to elite 66 level, which I actually like the sound of. It means that there's now like elite areas in a lot more zones. However, keep in mind that the quality you're going to get from those chests and those mobs actually going to get decreased. They're also changing PvP scaling. Now, whilst this seems on paper that it's like the higher level player and the lower level player are going to have a fairer fight, without actually seeing this in practice, we really don't know how this is going to play out. The Christmas stuff, I have to say, it all seems fun. It sounds like there's maybe some cosmetic rewards and stuff like that in there. I really like the sound of like temporary quests. You know, it seems like there's going to be some really cool rewards. I like the fact that they did the turkey. I haven't actually managed to find one myself, but you know, there's a giant turkey roaming the world right now. Those kind of things are fun, and I actually really enjoy them. But I think that the game is sort of lacking a little bit on end game content, like PvP arenas or something like that, and I'd rather see us concentrate on that first before we do these fun events. I don't really want to complain too much about that because I think there's enough that I'm moaning about already in this video. And the big change to expertise rating, as I said, it sounds fine, but my main problem with it is that you are time gating content, and I just really dislike the idea of that. Like, it's an MMO, people can play as much as they want, and whilst for me it's actually sort of good in a sense because I don't get to play like 12 hours a day, I have a full-time job, wife, kids, etc. And in the long term that's probably a better system for me. I don't necessarily think it should be like that. I feel like time gating is just icky and pointless. Does anybody actually like it? I don't think so. And even more frustrating, Amazon is doing the classic thing of rewarding the people who got there early and got their advantage, and then anybody who comes after is, well, you're going to get slowed down and essentially not get the rewards from what everybody else has had. Good luck catching up, noobs. Hey, like this video if you like this video, you like me talking about it, etc. Subscribe if you've not already. Like, please do, please subscribe, please. Have a most beautiful day. Goodbye.